Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is Friday again. We're so glad to have you back in the room. And what a great song to open up with. Andrea Day with Stand Up for Something. And right now, we all have to stand up for something. Voting rights, racial justice, the climate crisis, everything is on the line. So I know in this room, we definitely try to stand up for each other. Because if we don't stand for something, then we need to stand up for something. So let's talk about today's theme. Today is Face Everything and Rise. It's our Independence Day special. And, you know, as we face everything and rise, we have to understand that we just celebrated Juneteenth. And now we're celebrating the Independence Day of our country. But comes with a caveat. We're all now having to face up, and some people don't want to face up to it. Our history hasn't always been something very proud. Some things have not been great. We've had genocide, we've had racial injustice, and these are things that we have to face up to if we're going to be a more perfect union. Document signed 200 years ago had these ideals, had these sentiments of, you know, equality for all men are created equal, when at the same time we had people that were not free, that were brought here in enslavement. And we had Native Americans, even in that document of the preamble, that talk about them as savages. So we have a lot to face up to. And today we face up to stuff and we rise together. We're so glad that you're in the room with us to just start this great conversation that we will be having. And hopefully today or this weekend will be a weekend that we can reflect on how we can be better, how we can always be there for each other and stand up together. So let's get it started. We have a great lineup today, a great show. I'd like to introduce some of our guests all of our guests are here in the room. Everybody was on time, so that is awesome. All the way from the UK, we have author Kate Moore. Hello, Kate, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on this afternoon, and happy Independence Day from the UK.
Yes, I guess it has a lot. This is really interesting. You know, I just thought about here you are from Britain, and this is what Independence Day, we got rid of you, right?
Right, exactly. But I celebrate with you in spirit.
Oh, good. I'm just teasing you, but thank you for being here. Award-winning New York Times and USA bestseller of the Radium Girls is here to talk about your new book and what it is all about, this silencing of women in history, and even today, how we see the implications of that. So thank you, Kate, for being here. And
Thank you.
Yes, great. And then next up, Sam Russell, Delegate Sam Russell, also of the Impact Center, who also ran for Lieutenant Governor in Virginia. Sam, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Catherine. Great to be back with you all. Excited to chat today.
Me too. I'm excited to hear what you always come prepared to tell us, what really we need to think about as we head into this election. So we're so glad that you're here with your truth, love, and grit, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up from Engage is Aisha Ahmed. She's the Deputy National Organizing Director of Engage. Hello, Aisha.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody.
Hey. Happy Friday. You know, what's fun is that I met you actually on the campaign trail, and you just blew me away. You just have so much energy and passion for what you do, what Engage does with working for Muslim Americans, giving them a voice. And I can't wait to hear about your organization and the spotlight today. So thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you.
And always a fave to come on the show, Charlotte McConnell, equality advocate, and she called herself a queer patriot. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here to discuss what is happening in the Loudoun County School Board, but also in every school board across Virginia. And really, this is like a national effort, so we need to be paying attention.
Well, we really do, and we have to stand up together. And I know that everybody wants to hear about what is happening and the dog whistle that's being blown in these school board meetings. So thank you, Charlotte, for being here. It is awesome to see you. I love your background. And then it's always with the Power Lunch, we are about supporting and empowering the candidates that are running. Over these last couple of weeks, we've had different candidates on. Today, we have Jeffrey Doc Field. Hello, Doc. How are you?
Hi, Catherine. Dr. Feld. So happy to be here with you guys, and glad to participate with your show.
Yeah, also in the car, who pulled over so he can dance, Scott Flaxen, HD82. How are you, Scott?
I'm great. I really appreciate you giving us a forum.
Great. Yeah, I know. All eyes are on the Tidewater, and you guys are both Virginia Beach region. So we are so happy to have you in the room today, because we really have to make sure we bring it down in that area for this election. So thank you guys for being here. And let's get down to business, as we say. First, I want to say hi to my team. Thank them. Stair Calhoun, Ambassador of Buzz. We have Robin Warner. She's in the room. She is our, where are you at, Robin? There she is. Hello, Robin. Thank you. And of course, we also have Rosemarie Savina. Where are you at, Rosemarie? Thank you. Keeping us straight in the back room, doing our technical, join the team. So thank you. There you are with your great banner up in the back. Yes, thank you. All right. So it's good to see you gals. I'm sure Robin's like going, we didn't plan to do that. You really messed me up. Right, Robin? I can read your mind.
There you go. You mind reader you.
What are you doing? Okay. So so just so we get this show started, you know that this show is about being the patrons in the room. We want to thank you for supporting the show. That's how we have a little extra money to do the kind of technology that we need. So thank you if you're a patron. Put your hand up. Also, subscribe to our YouTube. We have some great content up there, and put your thumbs up on our videos, and follow us on Twitter. This week is a big push, and make sure your hashtag is Keep Virginia Blue, and then also hashtag Friday Power Lunch. And the rules of the road: we try to close the room at 12:15 to make sure that the trolls aren't in here, and make sure that we're civil in the chat, and stick around. Speaking of the chat, stick around for the after chat if you have time, just to kind of shoot the shit. We'd love to have you. Big announcement: no show on July 9th, because we're taking the week off to prepare for the second phase of the Women's Summit. We will be heading this show on the road for Harrisonburg, and also then Virginia Beach. And we will be doing some more, obviously our online training starts. Do you want to talk about that now, Robin, or do you want to go right to what happened at the Women's Summit? Some of the opening from this past kickoff in Nova?
Let's talk about what happened.
Okay, let's talk about what happened. So, of course, some of you in the room know that we're doing this incredible 5th annual Women's Summit, and we kicked off the first section in Nova at the Suffragette Turning Point, and also in the Riverview was the event center, and we had over 68 candidates and elected take the stage, empowering this whole community to run for office, get the activists going. So this was super successful, and it was preceded by 2 days of online training with our partner Demcast. So some of you were twittering away with them. We did a fun activity with Deborah Gardner that we lifted her video to over 4,000 views, learning how to use social media. So I would love to share with everybody how we opened the Women's Summit, because it really segues into our first guest, Kate Moore, on how women were silenced. So go ahead, let's show the Turning Point video.
Suffragist Memorial. I'm Pat Worth, the Executive Director and CEO of this organization. And today we are standing on part of the historic prison grounds where in 1917, right up the hill from here, scores of women were illegally jailed under harsh conditions. They were beaten and they were tortured for picketing the White House in 1917. And you see over there a fence. That is the actual White House fence in front of which they picketed in 1917. Make sure you get it. Look at it and get your picture taken in front of it. It took the suffrage movement more than 7 decades, but they persevered. They never gave up. Not all women were able to vote in 1920, particularly minority women who had to continue to fight to become citizens and overcome suppressive state voting laws, in some cases for 45 more years. Nonetheless, we stand here today on the shoulders of every one of those brave, tenacious women in a memorial built to honor them and their achievement. If you're a woman and you vote, thank a suffragist.
Amazing. So we started out there, and what is so important, and it was amazing to see that even White House fence there, but to listen to these voices of women who fought for the vote, to hear their anguish of not having that power, that they wanted their voices to be heard, but were silenced. And it was really emotional to hear from Krista Jones, Dory Scott, we had Lisa Sales, we had Mark Keem, and of course we also had, that was Pat Worth that you saw there. So it was just amazing to hear those voices. With that, I'd like to start ready for our first guest. I'm going to bring up my run of show. And then at the end of the show, we will talk a little bit about what's coming up next for the Women's Summit. So Kate, this is very interesting because after this event of the Turning Point and the suffragists and hearing how they're tortured and jailed and this long vote, and also we talked about the racism that existed in this time, that Black women, even in the suffragette movement, were also excluded from a lot of this, this activities. So the next day I woke up and I was Googling some news and your book came up. And I thought it really spoke to me because of this idea of, the book is called The Woman They Could Not Silence, One Woman, Her Incredible Fight for Freedom, and the Men Who Tried to Make Her Disappear. And it seemed like that this fight for, and I thought about the hundreds of years that women tried to fight, have their voices heard, called crazy, all these things. It gets into your book. You're also the author of The Radium Girls. That's an amazing story. And you just have a gift that you have written 15 books and that your work has been translated into 12 languages. So we're so, so grateful to have you here. Let's talk about what got you interested in Elizabeth Packard. Tell us about the book. Tell us about Elizabeth Packard. Set this up for us.
Sure. Well, Elizabeth's story starts on the cusp of the American Civil War. So this is a history book I've written, and here it is. If anyone can see it, here's my baby. It starts on the cusp of the American Civil War in June 1860. And it starts with Elizabeth Packard, who I'm sure many of your viewers have never heard her name before because, as often happens, history has forgotten this feisty woman who stood up for herself. It remembers instead the men who tried but failed to silence her. And her story starts with Elizabeth, a 43-year-old housewife and mother of 6, lying in bed in her marital home. And the story starts with a simple question. What would happen if your husband could commit you to an insane asylum just because you disagreed with him? And that's what happens to Elizabeth. And the book charts her journey, her the shock and horror as she's committed to the asylum, her fight for freedom, her fight to raise up the sisterhood of women, to whom this is also happening, her fight to improve the rights of women and the mentally ill. She becomes a political campaigner. She's, a woman ahead of her time, calling for women to be entered on the ballot boxes, to be put into your Senate, your Congress, your president's chair, she writes. And the book is also about Elizabeth's journey to become that political campaigner. She starts the book as a housewife and she moves, she realizes that the personal is political and she becomes this political campaigner who makes the world a better place. But my way into this story, as you asked, is actually a very modern twist on the story. And the story started for me not in the June of 1860, but in the fall of 2017, amid the fire of the Me Too movement. And I'm sure everyone remembers that movement, how empowering it was, you know, women speaking up, speaking out, but crucially being listened to and believed. And that got me thinking, why has it taken so long for that to happen? Because women have always spoken up and made accusations of rape or, you know, misogyny, sexual harassment. But it was only in the fire of the Me Too movement that suddenly the whole world seemed to be paying attention and actually, you know, giving credit to what women were saying. And so, as I was thinking about these ideas, they coalesced around a single realization. For centuries, whenever women have used our voices, we've been called crazy. Our mental health has been wielded as a weapon against us. And that's what I wanted to write about. So, I'm a storyteller at heart as a writer. I do write nonfiction, but I write in a very novelistic way. So what I wanted to do was try to find one woman's story to explore these issues. And I really want to make the point, just as a final point, that this really is, you know, these are issues that still resonate today. So, for example, you know, even as I was coming up with the idea and researching it, I'm seeing, you know, Hillary Clinton running for president. She's called hysteric. Nancy Pelosi standing up to Donald Trump. He tweets, there's something wrong with her upstairs. She's a very sick person.
No, I that really struck me when I read your prelude to the book. I found some of your words just really, I actually started listening to the Audible last night as I went out for a walk. And those two kind of stopped me in my tracks when you said, first off, this book is not about mental health. It is how it can be used against you as a weapon. And it did make me just harken back to, you know, when they put Nancy Pelosi on a broom, and that your direct words about, there was somebody you quoted in the book. It says, I think it was Roxane Gay in 2015, says, unruly women are always witches, no matter what century we're in. And
exactly,
I mean,
right.
Yeah, and that really resonated just about how you talked about power. This book is about power.
Yes, that's completely it. And what I find astonishing about Elizabeth is how she moves from this powerless position into a woman who, you know, she demands that actually you will respect her and, you know, you will listen to what she has to say. You know, she became a very successful political campaigner eventually. You know, the book is about how on earth she gets out of the situation, because as crazy as it seems to us today, perhaps, the law at the time said that the husband and wife were one, and that one was the husband. And it meant that women like Elizabeth had no rights at all, no legal rights, no civic rights. They had no rights to their own earnings, to the custody of their children, to their very liberty. The law at the time that Elizabeth is committed is that husbands can send their wives away by request, and specifically without the evidence of insanity that is required in other cases.
Yes. And let's talk about the juxtaposition. I mean, we have, this is 1860. You have we're so many years away from the Civil War. So your words talking about even, you know, the rights that women, even just privileged middle-class women, didn't have. I mean, here we had slavery at the same time in bondage. And I think on the Independence Day, to kind of sum that up about, you know, this history of this country and how many really that the words were founded on in our laws did not, I mean, really still, we are still in this struggle. But in your perspective during that time, what was Elizabeth's thinking around slavery? You had mentioned that her kind of point where she found her voice was in 1848 with Seneca Falls, which actually, this is where the Women's Summit came from, by the way, our idea with it. So what is there any in her writings that you found how she kind of looks at slavery at the same time with her own feelings of not having rights?
Yes, she does. And Elizabeth is, you know, she becomes a prolific writer. You know, I talked about her finding her voice. She finds her voice in the asylum. She begins to keep a secret, forbidden journal, you know, stealing scraps of fabric and paper to write upon. And yes, she does. She does write about slavery. She thought it was abhorrent. She was a passionate abolitionist, you know, and she did see a kind of mirror the way that obviously, slaves have no freedom, they have no rights. Obviously a very, very different situation, but she saw a parallel there with the way that married women also have no rights. And so, yeah, she talks passionately about abolition, and she wants freedom for all, and not just the slaves, but also, Native Americans, for women. She writes about all these disenfranchised groups, the mentally ill as well, both male and female. She's really passionately writing because she wants equality for everyone.
Well, what struck me also is this idea that you make this statement about powerlessness leading to almost a mental illness. And it's how I feel sometimes now, like, honest to God, when we're trying to fight so hard for our country, and it feels like every day you wake up, it just feels like your powerlessness sometimes, like against this force that seems to be at least, coming across the United States pretty strongly, but across the globe, we see people that don't have any kind of power. Talk about that in the sense of this character's, this historic figure's struggle with that. You seem to link that to the people in there and to mental illness. And you talk about disproportionately people, marginalized communities. That's pretty typical.
Yes, the point is that we're only just beginning now to realize that powerlessness does lead to struggles with your mental health. Back in Elizabeth's time, when they saw for example, that women were committed, and they were committed for lots of reasons, but they thought there was a biological reason that women seem to go mad more often. They linked it, they called it uterine derangement, and they directly linked women's actual physical bodies, their sexual organs, to madness. That's why many women were locked up. Their menstrual cycles were monitored and considered, that was why women were considered to go mad. We realize now that actually, if you are powerlessness, then you will lead to struggles with your mental health. But as I say, actually, that isn't what I'm focusing on the book. And I think how Elizabeth responds to her powerlessness is what really makes her remarkable, because actually she found that when she was put in the asylum, she has no recourse to freedom. Everyone is belittling her, undermining her. The only way she's supposed to be allowed out of the asylum is if she submits to the masculine authority of her doctors and her husband. Women are sent there to become obedient wives. But Elizabeth writes that, she says, in my case, this woman-crushing machinery works the wrong way. The true woman shines brighter and brighter under the process instead of being strangled. And Elizabeth actually found that she became a stronger person through having all her rights taken away from her. It actually made her even more determined to fight for what she believed in, to speak out, to use this unsilenceable voice that she found through the asylum. And it's through that crucible of suffering that actually she rises like a phoenix. And that's one of the things I love about this story. And I hope that readers who read The Woman They Could Not Silence, I think actually it's one of Elizabeth's greatest legacies to inspire us all, that when people are trying to wear us down and, are making accusations of insanity, exactly, there, I can see the slogan on your background, face everything and rise. Right. That is what Elizabeth Packard did. And I hope readers who read her story will be inspired to do that too.
No, yes, and just to give her due, because we need to wrap this up. She did go on to pass 34 bills. Can you sum that up? What she did?
Yeah, so she passed 34 bills in 24 states and across 44 legislatures, I think it was. So a truly extraordinary woman, a woman who made a difference in the world. And the fact that we're talking about her now, she truly was the woman they could not silence.
No, well, I recommend everybody get both of your books. I just find that the story, like you said, having that positive, and really, you're so right. I wonder if she found her voice, she found her way during that struggle. And that is the key to this, making her such a kind of a beloved historical figure, right? So thank you so much for your research and your accuracy in that research. I mean, all your the stuff that you use came directly, the dialogue comes directly from transcripts and memoirs. So I love historical pieces. So thank you so much, Kate. And it's such a pleasure to meet you. And you just, hopefully you can stick around.
Likewise, unfortunately, I have to dive off. I have a baby to feed, but thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Kate, and good luck with your book tour. I know you go on your book tour next week, so thank you so much.
That's right, yes, but I'm doing a series of virtual events, so check it out at www.kate-moore.com. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Kate. Well, we're so lucky to get in touch with her. Robin just sent an email, and right away she emailed us right back. So we just always just try our best, and we do pretty good sometimes. So thank you, Kate. And next up, what a great way to follow that segment is another person who likes to empower people in their work, has empowered our work. Sam Russell, welcome. How are you, my friend?
I am great. I'm great. Thank you, Catherine. Great to be with you today. Looks like you got a great crowd.
Yeah, it's a holiday, so we're not doing too bad. We usually get up over 100. We may get there, but it is July 2nd. There you go. There's something going on with the spotlight. I apologize. I don't know why it's jumping around. Here we go. So good to see you. So tell us what we're going to be doing today.
Yeah, well, I've got a few slides to share with you, where we'll go through a few things that we've learned on our Truth, Love, and Grit tour along the way. Virginia is a big state. There's about 10 hours from one tip to the other. And so just making sure that as we're heading into the 2021 election cycle, we keep several pieces in mind. And as we're thinking about our own institutions or causes that we are fighting for, I just want to share with you a few thoughts that we picked up along the way.
Yes. No. Yeah. Do you want to share your screen? And what I think it's important, and what about your work? I know you are working with the candidates running, but this is really for us to learn about as activists, how in this election we are, understand how to message, how to actually make sure that Democrats do well, so our issues do well. So thank you.
That's right. It is important. We talked a lot about this Truth, Love, and Grit tour as we went all across Virginia from Lee County to Accomack, and a few points that I wanted to make sure that we highlight. And I think it's important, as we've seen a lot over the past 4.5 years, 5 years, and many questions about how do we proceed, how do we move forward, and gauge some of the progress that we've made. So I'm going to quickly go through a few things that are top of mind for me that I'd like to pass on that may be helpful for some folks. One thing that was key is that we must rebuild trust in institutions again. We'll talk about rebuilding that trust with the acronym TIME. We'll quickly touch on that voters' mindsets are pretty complicated, and why that is the case. And it's been that way for some time, but it ebbs and flows, and then the arc of history. So what we see here, if you see this graph first on the left, it shows that about 1964, trust in government was at an all-time high, 77%. Today is closer to 20%. The reason why trust is so important in institutions is because as Democrats, we are the party of institutions that believes that there's an important role for organizations, institutions in advancing not only progressive ideas, but the fact is that we're all in this together. There are common struggles and stories that bring us together. And while we are proud many times of our individual accomplishments, as Americans, we know that we did not accomplish anything alone, and that in fact, we had people there with us every step of the way. And many times we have forgotten to capture that narrative. And sometimes that narrative has been taken away from us. And so rebuilding trust in institutions, plainly stating that government has a role in our lives to help us, whether it's in education, healthcare, transportation, and then defending that role, ensuring that we never lose sight of that. And so a few things that I learned just over this past year that I believe are top of mind for many folks is this acronym TIME, to help rebuild trust in institutions. So what I'd love for you all to do as we're mentioning these very quickly is to go into the chat box and just type in a few things that maybe answer some of the questions here at the bottom. First, I'll talk about time, transparency, inclusiveness, money, and empowerment. And so what we want to do collectively as a team here and beyond is to think about how we rebuild trust in institutions through time. Through what ways can we increase transparency in organizations or in politics, in campaigns? How can we ensure that we create a more inclusive environment and not just the facade of, hey, here's what we think inclusivity looks like, or having a token? How do we really bring people around the table? And we'd love to have your ideas. I know that Robin saves these chats, and this can be the crux of some of the trainings that we're going to be doing through Network Nova and the Women's Summit, as you know, all summer long. We're talking about some of this. Money out of politics. How have you seen money impact politics negatively, and what kind of reforms would you like to see? Again, put some of this in the chat as you have ideas. And through empowerment, many of you know we've pushed forward over the past 4.5 years through the Impact Center, trained over 2,000 candidates, activists, and organizers. And so this intentional empowerment, how does empowering others, what does that look like for your organization and to you? And what should we be doing collectively as a party, as a Network Nova, through your organization? And so when we think about building and rebuilding this trust through transparency, through ensuring that we're properly inclusive, how do we limit the influence of outside special interests? And then this intentional empowerment. You have an issue, a cause that you are pushing, or wanting to become a leader yourself, as we're seeing so many candidates step up. How can we rebuild trust in institutions with time? And so we'll look forward to some of your input in the chat, and we'll try to build on some of that as we move forward in the coming weeks in a variety of ways. But here's a basic conclusion. This is not just a tangential conversation about rebuilding trust in institutions. In fact, it is core. If you label yourself as liberal or progressive and you're wanting to advance causes, what we have to be able to do is collectively rebuild trust in institutions to advance these progressive ideas. And that is really the only path in moving forward, because we are the party that believed in Medicare, that has advanced Medicaid. We are the party that is advancing voting rights right now, that believes in public education. These are stalwarts of institutions that need to be supported every step of the way. Mm-hmm. Second, I wanted to quickly touch on voters' mindsets. You know, here's a quote from W.E.B. Du Bois, which is complicated. And this is how I feel like many voters' mindsets, especially I'm, traveling from deep Southwest Virginia all across the Commonwealth, that is interesting. And as you see in this quote, back of the writhing, yelling, cruel-eyed demons who break, destroy, maim, lynch, burn at the stake is a knot, a large or small, of normal human beings. And these human beings at heart are desperately afraid of something. Mm-hmm. So when we're thinking through these conversations that are happening in school boards, when we think about what's happening at some of these protests, this fear of what? Of many things, but usually of losing their jobs, of being declassed, degraded, actually disgraced, of losing hopes, their savings, their plans for their children, of actual pangs of hunger, of dirt, of crime. And it's a reminder from a Stoic figure from many decades ago that even then it was complicated, and we can feel that, at least I can. I can certainly feel that today. And lastly, I wanted to remind us all that as we have our struggles, and we certainly have many battles going on, that in fact the war, the marathon is long, and the arc of the moral universe is long, and it bends towards justice. And here's a great book that you might consider reading that will shine on how there was a complicated past in America, but where sometimes where we've struggled with fear and trust, where we are battling hope, sometimes where it's pit up against certain fear mongering. Sometimes our better angels have prevailed. And so this Soul of America, the battle for better angels, goes and highlights how it is complicated, how, you know, even with John F. Kennedy and the South, it was a complicated issue. And following his assassination, that's what inspired Lyndon B. Johnson to then push forward with civil rights in all of its forms. And so if you're looking for some look back at where we've struggled and actually persevered a little bit while it is complicated, this is a great read that I'm going to be rereading this month as well.
Okay, and you have your contact information. You can see, Sam, if you look in the chat, people are responding. There's a lot about truth, being trustworthy. So if you want to take a look in there, it's great, because I think this is nice to focus on this weekend. And I love that you always bring something concrete, something tangible, something just for us to really think about and then put into practice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is, and what I'm feeling is lots of mixed emotions right now. We've had a presidential election. We're coming up on another election, and it's important to be able to take all this in, reconcile it, because that'll be the fuel that keeps us going.
No, and you're right. And as we talk today, like about the school board thing, and you always talk about where we need to engage, where we need to ignore, and where we need to fight. Those are also really great learning lessons, so we don't get pulled into this, I call it the toxic vortex, or, you know, how we do respond, how we do talk about our values. All these are so important. And because we need to talk about like what we have done, like you said, as Democrats, the things that we have delivered. And sometimes we get caught into this kind of vortex of just like sucked into the negativity, because that's where people want to bring us emotionally, to just always be in that place that sometimes, you know, isn't the way we should be fighting, as we say. So
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I know you have to leave, so we'll make sure that you get on time. And who better to follow you than your friend? Aisha's here, Ahmed from Mgage. And Mgage is an amazing organization that supports Muslim Americans. Are you here, Aisha?
I am here, Catherine. How are you?
Good. I'm great. It's great to see you. And I just so glad that you were able to make it today. So yeah, tell us about
No better place to be today. I'm telling you.
Yeah, good. So spark it up, my friend. What is happening with Mgage? What are you going to be doing this year, and just in general?
Well, in the Mgage world, 1 week is never like the next, so it's always a fun journey to be on. But for those of you who haven't gotten to know Mgage before, we're a national civic advocacy group, and our job is to build a healthy civic ecosystem for the American Muslim community. I use ecosystem because, like any good, thriving, blossoming ecosystem, everyone has a role to play, and the best that we see out there thrives in a cycle, right? So it's a continuous process. It's a collective process, and that's what we're trying to build and exercise from the ground up. And to help operate the ecosystem. We have 3 entities. We have a C3 institution. We have a C4 institution. So in the C3, it's about building education and just connecting the tools that are available to our communities on the ground. We have a C4, which allows us to, mobilize on that education piece and activate on the issues that matter most to us. And in our third arm, the PAC arm, we're able to endorse and support candidates, phenomenal candidates like Sam Rasool, who are, the best representatives and allies to the issues and the communities that we represent. And, the American Muslim community is just so large and diverse. We're not a monolith. We have such an array of representation and voices. So like I said, Engage is an interesting journey. One week is never like the next. I'm honored to be a part of the team. Honestly, a dream come true.
Yeah, well, when I first saw you down in Prince William and you got up to speak, first I met just amazing enthusiasm. It was rainy out. But how did you, so how long have you been at Engage and how long has Engage been around? And has it, how long has it been around?
Yeah, so we actually came out of the state of Florida in 2008. And since then, we've been growing and thriving in other states as well, too. We are based in Michigan. We're based in Florida, Texas, Pennsylvania, the New York metro area, all areas of significant American Muslim populations. I jumped on the Engage train in 2017, and that's when we went through a major rebrand, and we brought in the DC office because another part of the ecosystem or tool that we were missing was a DC connection, a DC arm that could, connect our efforts on Capitol Hill as well too. So some days it still feels like a startup operation, but I was coming hot off of the 2016 presidential elections.
Right.
So that's, yeah.
Well, what strikes me is when we talk about the Muslim population, American Muslims in this country, it's a voting bloc that obviously we have seen in huge turnout, meaning that issues like just other Americans also, they care about the same things to some degree, right? I mean, when you say
Absolutely.
that, absolutely. And then I remember watching the debates, and I didn't know how you felt when the commentator asked Delegate Rasool, like there was some strange thing that American Muslims actually would have a voice or want to donate money to somebody. I mean, what did that make you feel like at Engage? Did you guys have any comments on that?
Well, I mean, absolutely. The comments and questions were unfounded, but the unfortunate reality is that this isn't an uncommon narrative that we've seen. And so what we're hoping to do and build over time is, to build very visible, very loud and proud American Muslims in the whole political process. So not only as candidates, but also the folks behind the scenes who are knocking the doors and calling in text messages. Small things like adding Assalamu alaikum, which just means peace upon you in our scripts, is a huge game changer for our community. And that, small tools like that is what's really changing the game for the community. We definitely have the means, we have the numbers, and we have the power. So it's great to see it slowly being acknowledged as well, too.
Absolutely. And the list of people that want to donate, I just found that real interesting, that sort of, we just take it for granted when you see a list of names that may appear just like, I don't know, for lack of a better word, white Americans or Bill, Bobby or whatever. And, you have lists of Muslim Americans that have every right to donate. It's just so interesting to me that people thought that was like, we need to question that, so your work is so important because making sure that people can vote, know how to vote, or they're, this is something that we want to make sure that it extends to everybody. And after the Supreme Court decision about the voting rights, I think disappointed all of us that, rolling back these voting rights is very disturbing.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your work. I appreciate it. I'm so glad that you're here and you're able to come, and I hope we can stay in community, Aisha.
I'll definitely be around. Oh, and if I could, the acronym, I'm loving it. Face Everything and Rise. I don't know if you guys realize, but it's an acronym for fear. And sometimes we can think about, when fear hits us,
Ah.
we're kind of hit with, you can forget everything and run, or you can face everything and rise. So I really appreciate the theme here today, and I hope we can all take something from that moving forward. But thank you for having
Thanks,
me on. It was a fun
Aisha.
time.
Yeah, no, great. Have a great weekend. And next up, as we stay in this theme of facing everything and rise, here is our friend Charlotte McConnell, former president at Equality Loudoun. And so tell us, we really wanted to get your voice on this. You were on the stage at the Women's Summit. You're very inspiring how you talked about really how equity and rights for everybody it benefits everybody, right? When you fight for one kind of right, you improve everybody's life. So just tell us today a little bit about what you're working on, and then also what's going on at the school board on your perspective and what we can do to help.
Yeah, it was such an honor to be at the Women's Summit. Y'all really pulled off a wonderful event. And I missed the first Women's Summit because I had to face the reality that I was at a high risk for breast cancer. And on June 22nd, 2017, I had a double mastectomy. 4 years later, I find myself standing in the parking lot of LCPS, surrounded by basically a Trump rally. We got there early to set up camp and claim space. And then I literally went to therapy and I came back to the school, and there were so many red hats in the parking lot, and my anxiety was up. And on the agenda that night was the policy 8040, which would provide model policies for transgender students. What parents talked about that night was CRT and a unicorn, and it was disgusting and a national embarrassment. And even students or graduates are writing LTEs ashamed of the parents' behavior. And it really does come down to fear. I mean, these parents are very afraid that they are going to lose something. And equity does not mean that anyone is going to get less. Equity means everyone is going to get what they need to succeed. And when we protect Black students and when we protect queer students, we protect all students without a doubt. And, earlier in that song, it said, we are not here to judge. And it is not up to you to decide whether or not that child's pronouns are up to your God. Like, no, if you cannot address a child by their pronouns, you should not be in public school. And I really think we have spent 4 years reacting to a lot of negative things. But in Loudoun, we made massive wins. We have flip seats. Like, we do need to hold the line on equality because we still have Dave LaRock representing the 33rd. And we are hoping that maybe an error in paperwork filing will kick him off the ballot. But let's all be honest. We know that white man is going to sneak onto that ballot. Like, he's an incumbent. Yes. It's going to, go down. And
let me just let everybody in the room know, is the Loudoun School Board meeting. Just so you know, because you used your acronym, not everybody in the room may know where you're talking about. And this area, like you so astutely said, this is where we made these big inroads, Charlotte. We were out there fighting. We won. Jennifer Wexton became a congressperson out there. We booted out Barbara Comstock. And then all the school boards across Fairfax, Prince William County, we really flipped these school boards to Democrats. Now what we're seeing, like you said, is a huge backlash. And I want your opinion on this. I look at this and I'm thinking it seems like just a concerted effort by the Republican Party and the higher ups that are trying to run this game here to see how it plays out across the nation. If they can get parents all afraid, they want to get them to the ballot box in November.
Yeah, they are definitely trying to rile up their base, especially here in Virginia, because as goes Virginia, so goes the nation. Everyone is watching us because we have elections every year. And we've already seen the Republican governor campaigning at the Loudoun County Public School Administration building, so we know that the next school board meeting will be on August 10th, and we are expecting people to show up to that meeting. And I left a chat in the link. You can watch the June 22nd meeting.
I saw that.
And it is important that people understand it is not going to be a safe environment. You know, if you decide you want to give public comment and tell LCPS that you support equity in our school, that you support trans students, that they're doing a good job, awesome. Just know that the same thing could happen. What happened on June 22nd could happen on August 10th. And that is the night before the 4-year anniversary of Charlottesville. So
Yeah.
I think that there is a lot of
Back up,
reckoning.
what happened on June 22nd at the Loudon at that, you're talking about
That was the school board meeting where, I mean, 2 people were arrested. My friend and her child were threatened by a man that did have a firearm in a government building that shouldn't have. So you can see that the opposition, they don't really care about rules or decorum. They want to hold our school board hostage to test their messaging so that they can win elections. And they're hoping to exhaust us and wear us down. So
well, I agree. And I think there is the balance, like when we need to engage, fight, and you know, I think what we can do too is we have to figure out how to definitely help. And we will have on July 16th, no, actually July 23rd, we'll have some school board members here actually talking about that. And I hope we can get some concrete information from the school board members. How can we help? Can we send the comments in? How can we be supportive? Because like you said, it is dangerous what we see being stirred up. So we appreciate you being here. Want to say one last word. We need to get over to the candidates. We so appreciate you being here, Charlotte.
Yes, it is really important that we are standing up, speaking out, and showing up. So email your school board to let them know when they are doing good, and promote it online. Also encourage other people in your community to reach out. If you want to give public comment, there is a way to do that in person, as I think they will still have a virtual option, and I'm always available to help people with their public comment. But we need to reclaim the narrative, and it really is about reclaiming patriotism, and it's July 4th. So, let's be proud to be American.
Exactly. I love that. And that's exactly what we need to do. Not being discriminatory, being angry, all these things that they're doing is not being the values that we want to strive for this country to be. But we saw January 6th. We're in something is going on here, and we know that we need to be ready for everything. This election is critical to your rights, our rights, women's rights, people of color rights, our voting rights, our climate. We need to make sure we hold the line. So thank you, Charlotte. It's always great to see you. And I do love it. Put your contact information. Some of us may need to contact you for that correct messaging, because it is always great. So thank you. All right. And what would be a power lunch without candidates? If we can bring both Jeffrey Filled Up and also Scott Flax, let's meet these wonderful gentlemen running for office down in Virginia Beach, where it's going to get hot and heavy for the election. Guys, thank you for being patient with us. Let's start. I'm sorry, there's some flickering on the screen, but Jeffrey, let's start with you, because you look like you're in the waiting room of your own office. I don't want to keep you. Tell me about yourself and tell me about your race and how we can help you.
Sure, thanks. I appreciate the time. Big fan of the show. As you guys know, I've been watching it for a while now. I'm Jeffrey Feld. I'm running a grassroots campaign to represent parts of Chesapeake and Virginia Beach as the next delegate for the 81st district, which is very flippable. In fact, last time the incumbent won it by less than 1,000 votes. So with everybody's help and getting out the vote, we can do it. Over the years, I've heard from my wife, of course, teachers, friends, and quite frankly, most like me, they're just frustrated with all the bickering, the politics, the lack of understanding some politicians have to the needs of both individuals and members of the community, which they're supposed to serve. My wife and I, we've been here in Hampton Roads for nearly 20 years. We have 3 school-age children that attend the public schools here in Virginia Beach. My wife is a teacher, so I have a personal stake to make sure the schools not only support some people, but everyone in an equitable way. I believe that we must keep pushing for improvements in our community through the equitable education, accessible healthcare, acceptance of our diverse population, doing protection of our environment, including flood mitigation and opportunity for job growth, specifically small jobs, not the big corporations. I'm an active member of the community, own my own podiatric medical practice. You can see I'm in my office right now, so I apologize for the scrubs. And I want to get back to the community. And just like this 4th of July weekend symbolizes, I'm going to be someone who's going to fight to help public schools in an equitable way, protect the environment, grow businesses, and continue the fight to provide accessible health care.
Yeah, and we're going to come down. So part of the Women's Summit is in Virginia Beach. That's not till August 13th, 14th, and probably the 15th. We'll be down there canvassing. We'll be down coming to your area. So we will definitely get in touch with your campaign, and we're going to be working on that. So we're so grateful you're running. We know that's going to be, again, a place we need to really make sure that we are getting our message out of what we have done and what we Democrats will continue to do for the area. But I know Virginia Beach is a pretty hard place, pretty red, some parts of it. So
yeah, I mean, in this area in Hampton Roads, we've got a very big, diverse population. They say that all roads lead through Hampton Roads. We have urban, suburban, rural agricultural land, all within my district and the surrounding areas. So this diverse population, you know, many are being brought to the region either through military service or whatever. They bring their own perspectives from around the country, and it becomes our own little melting pot. So myself and candidate Flax and other politicians, we're not taking anybody in any segment for granted. You know, we need to go then, get everybody out to vote, let them know the reason for voting, and not take them for granted and not assume that it's going to vote for me because I have a D next to my name. I want them to vote for me because it's the right thing to do. And it's not just voting at the top of the ballot, it's voting all the way down the ballot.
no, you're right. No, I think that it's definitely getting out our message. And like Delegate Rasool said, a lot of people do feel forgotten, and there are a lot of their issues that, you know, just they don't feel like anybody's listening. Okay.
So
Mike
Catherine, Scott Flack is having trouble getting on. So Mike Mullins, his campaign manager.
Oh, Mike Mullins. I was like going, Mike is here. So Mike, so thank you for standing in for Scott, who is in the car. So tell us about Scott and the race that's going on down there in the 82nd. Unmute.
Stare, can you unmute Mike?
Yeah, I don't think he's a co-host, so you got to unmute him.
You can unmute yourself.
There you go.
Hey, so sorry.
You don't have to talk to Mike. I'm here.
Oh,
God is here.
I just got off the elevator.
So there you go. Okay. Well, Mike,
sorry,
thank you.
everybody.
Well, you know what? You got a campaign manager that's on it. So already I could tell that you mean business. So Scott, how are you?
I'm great. I'm sorry. I had court today. I'm a lawyer by day. And I had a hearing today that should have lasted, not that long, but dockets get boxed up and I got a little stuck. So I appreciate it, being on here, appreciate, being patient to, allow me to drive to get back to the office.
We understand this is tough, running for office, working, and even this is not easy. So stepping up for the both of you. I think I've been donating to your campaigns today, both of you. I think today, 4th of July weekend, everybody, make sure you donate, even if it's $10, $20, $30 to both of these guys running down there. So Scott, just tell us briefly, we're up to almost the hour. Just tell us about your race. Tell us about you. Tell us about how we can help you.
About myself. So my name is Scott Flax. As I just said, I'm a lawyer. I'm born and raised here in Hampton Roads. I've lived 7 years old. So, for a long time now, I've lived here. And I wanted to give back. We talk about rising up, everyone rising up together and giving back.
Oh, poor, the audio has gone out. Even out of the elevator, Scott. Maybe you'll come back. If you can hear me, you've lost your audio. Hey, Mike, pop back in. Let's help Scott.
Sure. Come on,
speak for him. Go ahead. There we go.
Is he there?
He's okay.
Okay. We're sorry again.
Hour. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just plow through it.
Yeah. Scott's really focused on a lot of the issues critical to the district he's lived his whole life in. He's really focuses a lot on public education, small business issues, coastal flooding, like Doc Feld talked about, right? All these critical issues Virginia Beach is facing. And he's really excited to get to work on them. He's hard at work, reaching out to voters, raising resources. And so I posted in the chat all of our contact info, where you can donate, where you can sign up to volunteer. We're connected through Postcards for Virginia, an amazing program I know you guys are a big fan of, and our socials are there too. Again, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties.
No,
but,
it's the Zoom. It's life in the Zoom age, and no one even blinks an eye at it.
And our Facebook has a great intro video where Scott says a lot of the stuff he talks to groups about. So you can definitely check that out.
Yeah, and check out what we'll work with you guys around the Women's Summit and making sure we're down there knocking doors, writing postcards.
We're excited for you guys to be in the beach.
So Robin Warner is Postcards for Virginia. She's definitely the main chief of that with her team. So thank you so much for being here. And everybody, let's face everything and rise together. It's also about not only as a country, but as individuals, we have to make sure that we're there for each other, stand up for each other. And so whatever you do this weekend, make sure you give a little bit to these candidates. Make sure you just reach out to your friends. Make sure that you fight for voting rights. We actually have to hold the line in Virginia, but we really have to make sure that we protect our voting rights. After that Supreme Court decision the other day, it's really in our face that I think the Senate has to face up that. Let's just face it, they got to face up. They may have to break that filibuster and do the right damn thing, or we're going to lose our democracy. So that's just my chat for today. So the Women's Summit, let's just remind everybody that the Women's Summit continues all summer long. We have some great trainings coming up in July. Actually, we have 4 trainings, Robin. We have great trainings. Just make sure we'll put the link in the chat. You can check all those out. You can still sign up. You can still sponsor. And then we will be in Harrisonburg, July 23rd and 24th to support the candidates up there. And then in Virginia Beach, August 13th and 14th.